Hello everyone, and
Hey
here
everyone, good evening.
we are back. Let's see how this goes here. And I think that we have a couple more people joining us today. We have Alex and we have Yari. Hey guys, can you guys hear us okay?
Yes.
Thanks, Alex.
Yari, are you out there? Make sure that, let's see here, make sure that I can figure it out. Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, and Alex, are you ready to, and Yari, you guys ready to make your way to camera maybe?
Oh, yeah, why not? So let me see if I can get this to work here. Oh, I thought it was going to work right away.
Oh, it never does.
Okay, I think I got it here. All right.
Hey.
Oh, I like that we have like the same framing. You sort of have like a corner of a picture.
Yeah, mine kind of skew here, but, but it's fine.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
Yari
for
might
doing
be,
this. So
yeah, it'll be fun. And Yari might be a little bit away from the computer because I see that her microphone is also not on. I don't know if she's dialing or he's dialing in. I don't know if Yari is a man or a woman.
Well, maybe we'll find out.
yeah, soon.
Yes. Great. So today, Wednesday, 8 p.m., we continue to embark on our journey, which is this very informal book club about 2,000 years ago, this historical romance written by Emmanuel through the mediumship of Francisco Xavier. Last week, we just kicked things off a little bit by inviting folks to be part of the conversation. Told them about the format, which is a simple one. We are going to read a couple of chapters every week by ourselves. We can go ahead and ask some questions and share some insights at the site at Spiritism Online, where we have a course, so to speak, about the book club, so that we can also interact offline, or not offline, I guess I'd say asynchronously. Thank you. We're not all at the same time. But that way people who are not able to join us at this specific time zone, which we understand could be difficult for some folks,
Indeed.
can take part in our conversation there as well. Right. And we also talked about chapters, chapter one.
Introduction and chapter one.
And chapter one, right? And today we're doing chapters 2 and
3.
3, right? And
three. How do people do three?
Three. I think 3. Yeah, 3. Right. And I think we have about 10 chapters per part, and there's 2 parts in the book.
Yep.
So we're almost, if you think about it, we're like almost like at 20% of the book, which goes by quickly.
And you'll see us looking at our technology because there's a cheat sheet that Daniel created if you haven't found it yet.
Oh,
of all the characters, because I had a really hard time remembering who's who. So there's a link so you can see all the people. So if you see me looking at my phone, it's not because I'm texting somebody. It's because I'm trying to remember who's who, related to who. Because the story that you might not know, Alex, maybe you watched the first episode, but part of the reason why we're doing a book study and why we're making this public is because I have tried to read this book. No joke.
Yeah, I watched the video, so I know the background. So,
but you know what? Like last night and the night before, I was like, I gotta read my chapters. Like we committed to this. So Daniel's very nice to help me. He's got my cheat sheet. I read my chapters, and we're just going to chat about the book. And our hope is that you're going to join us and pipe in, because not only did you watch episode 1, but whether you read the book or not, you might have questions, you might have thoughts, so contribute. Neither one of us are experts. We are neither the person who psychographed the book, nor the spirits who contributed to it. And if we had anything to do with it in a previous life, at least I don't remember in this life. So we're assuming we all have the same wisdom to add. So yeah, feel free to contribute, and I guess we'll just kick it off. And if Yari is able to join either via voice or video, we'll await that. But if not,
We'll jump right in. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, for me it's great. So
Great.
let's start.
Great. Wonderful. All right. So one of the things that might happen too is when I fumble around, because I know you're reading a paper version, I am reading a digital version. Look at you. And I gotta be honest with you. I think that the digital version is great for individual reading, but for a group perspective, I am thinking about making the switch to the paper version because it's just so much easier to reference things.
I have both, but I have the digital one in Portuguese. So I read that a long time ago too, like you. So yeah. So I had this in the house. So I'm going to the paper now.
There you go. Let's do that. And so last time on chapter 1, I think we might want to do a quick recap, right? The super short recap.
Super short recap. Chapter 1, we met our protagonist, Publius Lentulus. And I'm just waiting for somebody to join this call one of these days and say, hey, by the way, you've been saying all the names wrong. But until then, I'm going to pronounce them the way that I know how to. So Publius Lentulus, his amazing wife, Livia, who's already my favorite character, their daughter, Flavia, their itty bitty baby, Marcus, which, by the way, full transparency, just as a reminder, we do have a baby in the house as well. So if I disappear at some point, it is most likely to take care of the baby.
I have one too. He's sleeping upstairs, so yeah.
Quietly. We learned about the protagonists. I'm going to call him his best friend.
Best friends, right?
Flaminius, the older senator, his wife Calpurnia, who is also best friends to Livia, and their 2 boys, Plinius and Agrippa.
Yes.
There's that.
Yes, we did.
And Flavia's sick, so they are moving to Jerusalem in order for her to be better.
That's right. And because they believe that the climate is helpful, because she has sort of undiagnosed illness that everybody's kind of afraid of calling what it is. It's leprosy. Which is very stigmatized because they are obviously, he's a senator of Rome. There is no other higher status at the time in Rome other than just being the empress. I think Tiberius at the time. And so he's a big cheese. They have a wonderful life, but they also have the mobility to move and continue to do his work elsewhere. And they do that, right? Yeah. And that's where we pick up on chapter 2.
Which the chapter is called A Slave, and I have renamed it to The Trip to Jerusalem and the Boy Who Threw a Stone.
Yes.
Look at that.
I think your titles are much better.
Don't tell Emmanuel. No. Let's not go there.
We're really not sure who threw the stone.
Good point.
We're not sure because he did not say that he threw the stone. If you read the book, that part they even say that guilt or not, he was right away being flayed or whatever they call.
Yeah.
I kind of jump here.
That's great. Let's talk about this, right? Because let's do a quick story plot on chapter 2, which is they get in a boat.
Yep. And
they make their way over to Judea, right, to the area around Jerusalem, and it's obviously a long trip. They are already preparing and wondering. We see Livia, we see Publius thinking different things. He's worried. She's trying to make things better. He's worried about their safety because his best friend, remember Flaminius, told him, hey, it's not exactly what you're used to in Rome. So, be very stern, set an example early on so that people know that you are the authority. Yeah. And he's got that in his mind. And he asks his people to, even his personal slave, right? Yeah. Which his name is Comenius. Yeah. Comenius. I had to write that one down. Yep. To keep an eye out and make sure that they have some extra protection around the family. Yeah. Right. Then they are greeted at the docks, I guess, basically, by a welcoming party that's a pretty formal piece. Yeah. And sort of like a procession-like piece, they proceed to go into Jerusalem. Yeah. Right. And then something happens. Yeah. A zinger. Some sort of something, a stone comes by and almost hits Livia, the wife, right?
No, hit her in the face.
Did it hit it?
Like
Did it nick her?
stripped
Like,
her,
yeah.
it nicked her.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's like, oh my God, this is a terrorist attack, basically, right? On the highest authority of Rome. And so they get worried, everybody stops, everybody circles, imagine the whole like military piece. And then this person, which is going to come by and show up again in the story later, his title is lictor. His name is Sulpicius Tarquinius, which is like a right-hand man for the governor of Judea, which we know it's a very important historical figure as well.
Yes.
Pontius Pilate, right? He's the one that goes out and grabs the kid, right?
Yes.
And then to Alex's great point.
I love that point.
Yeah.
I'm so glad, Alex, you brought that up because I just assumed it was the kid. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, the kid
Yeah.
did it. And then I felt bad for the kid, but I still was like, guilty.
And
Innocent until proven
Yeah.
guilty.
Well, not so much in those times,
Yeah.
right? And he's about 18, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And then something interesting happens, right? Because so what does the senator Publius do?
Flogs him.
He
Yeah.
remembers Flaminius, his
Yes.
friend, saying, you should be hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, I can't. Like, he's thinking, I got to set an example. And so he has the kid flogged.
But my superhero, Olivia, steps in and is like, enough.
That's enough.
That's bad, right? Like,
Yeah.
right? And she has some powerful. I got to find that specific passage, but she says like even enough. She calls it out. Like, she basically bosses like, enough, Publius. Like, even
that we're not tyrants or something.
yeah,
like.
or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I got to look it over here. But I mean, this is an interesting piece because she is speaking up. Like, she speaks up in public, right? And basically puts her husband in check. From a social perspective, that's pretty courageous.
I found the quote. It's on page 40 of your book too, Alex. Almost at the bottom of the page, there's a quote from her that says, "That's enough, Publius.
Yeah.
Our position does not give us the right to be merciless."
Merciless. Yes.
Right.
What a cool
And
quote.
so she does it very, I mean, she's still very elegant, right? But she doesn't tell him, stop him, you're wrong. But she reminds him like that our position does not mean that we get to be. And so that stops the beating. But then there is a second question for Publius, right? Which is, so now what? Right? Does he let the kid go? Right?
Nope.
Right, Alex? He does not let the kid go.
I think they do worse.
He does worse than that. Right?
Yeah, it's really worse than that.
He basically tells to the galleys with the kid, right? Basically saying, send him to be a slave.
Yeah.
Imagine the power, right? For you just randomly walk and point, and there's no judgment. There's no judge. He is the judge and the executioner. He is the ultimate authority.
And it's worse because it's not simple as slave, right? Even in the book, they say that everybody trembled because to the galleys mean that they bound for life. So there has no other choice, because in that moment of history, being a slave, there's all kind of slaves, right? We said in the beginning of the chapter that you guys talked about in the first video that you can be like a teacher, you can be like something in the house, so you can be a lot of stuff and still be a slave. But in this case, it's like he's going to the galleys, to a boat, to roar for life until the end. Yeah,
right? And your likelihood to die is it's higher because the work is so dire, right? Are you looking at a quote over there?
I'm just reading that part. Alex gave the quote already. He said, everybody trembled. I mean, I think that captures it.
Right. And that is how the kid's life has changed, right? In the moment. And then what gets me is that they proceed after that, right? His life has changed forever. And they just carry on to Jerusalem, right?
Yes.
Where they are received, in a very majestic way as well. There's even a quote that halfway through where it says that, they proceeded like they looked more like a military procession than a family, right? It was just like the whole, caravan of people. And chapter 2 then basically gives us the story of this boy, which we learn is called Saul, right?
Yeah.
And then we also get a little bit of historical context, I think, on that chapter, We also learn how Jerusalem was at the time, right? And that the Roman garrisons used to be housed at a Tower Antonia, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So they had this tower
Mhm.
close to the center of Jerusalem where the Roman factions could oversee everything and keep the order. So just imagine like 200, 300 soldiers, right? Just living in this fort that could oversee. This tower is no longer there nowadays, but could see the old temple and everything else. And that's how they controlled everything. They did not meddle, the Romans did not meddle that much in the affairs of others, but they were obviously taken to the stronghold, right? And over there, he sits down, and then he receives a visit of whom? Who do we get a visit from?
The dad.
Father, the kid's father.
Yes. And his name was Andre, right?
Yeah.
Son of Joras or Joras. I think Joras, probably the case. And he's a Jewish man, obviously. And he comes to beg, right? For his
Yeah,
kid's
obviously.
life.
My goodness. Saul's his firstborn. Like his baby.
And then, well, what does he say? He's saying basically, hey, my kid's not a bad kid. I don't know what happened, but I can vouch that he works and helps the family, which makes sense, right? Because we just think about kids nowadays, but that's also livelihood back then, right? Your family literally helped you survive. So working the fields, if you had fields. So it's even like a bigger hit on the family, right? And then what happens? One more time, do you guys remember?
Yeah, he denies. So he first, it's like the pride that talks louder in him, and like he just like, who are you to judge me what I did? So yeah, it's really bad.
Really bad, right?
Yeah.
And then Andre does something that is also very surprising but understandable, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes off back at Publius.
Almost feels like he curses him
He
on page
does.
40.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does.
He
Page
says it, right?
44 in the middle, he says, you have just planted a tree of thorns whose fruit shall one day irrevocably embitter your hard and insensitive heart. For my vengeance may be slow in coming, but like your unbending and cold soul, it shall likewise be inflexible and dreadful.
Yeah.
Man, it's like,
And the interest that this resonate really deep in Publius Lentulus, because he kind of goes back on his word to try to get the boy free, right?
exactly, which is great.
But first the father storms out, right? The father raises his hand, storms out. And then he reflects on it and he says, you know what? I might have overdone this, right?
Yeah.
And then he acts on it. So he goes, hey, let's free the kid up.
But I think in that moment, the first mistake that he did is not to get the father back.
Yes.
Because he let the father go away and did not go talk to him again, right?
Yes. And you guys remember what happens? So he asks for the kid to be free.
Mm-hmm.
They tell him that the kid
vanished.
He fled. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he thinks that,
somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "Oh, great!" And he thinks, "Great, problem solved. Like, don't go after the kid, right?" But he doesn't have the context.
Mm-hmm.
It's the context that was not exactly the story, and that people just took advantage of those slaves again in the Gallic that nobody cared about.
Yeah.
And basically just sold them for profit.
Yes.
Right?
Crazy.
So here's a plot twist, right?
Yes.
Plot twist that we have. So we have Saul, right? Saul that we learned, and he is now for sale as a slave. Although Publius thinks that the kid and the father episode is done, is solved, right?
And this story jumps like 2 months, right?
Yeah,
I think they say that in the book. They jump 2 months to the point that he's sold as a slave.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, and
he's moving ahead 2 months.
Back to Rome, right?
Yeah.
It says moving ahead 2 months in our chronology of events, we find him on a large platform near the forum, where men, women, and children all together are lined up nearly naked with a small placard hanging from their necks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's taken to the capital of the empire, and they're literally treated like goods.
Yeah.
But
here's the crazy part. This is like the trip out part, because Who does he become a slave to?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, I gotta look back at my notes because
Valerius Brutus.
Valerius.
Yeah, Valerius Brutus is the head of domestic services
for Flaminius.
Flaminius.
Yeah. So he goes back to the house of his to Publius' best friend and also Senator Flaminius.
With the kids, Plinius and Agrippa.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we can already get some foreshadowing here that there's going to be trouble in the future.
I don't know if you guys know, because I had no notion. He was bought for 4,000 sesterces.
Yeah, I don't know how much
that is. That.
No idea.
But I wonder how much that is.
But it's at a paltry sum, so it wasn't much.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't that much, because remember, I think that the guy wants more and he ends up being sold for less.
Yeah. Yes. He asked for 5,000, I think, or 5,000.
That's a 20% discount, right?
Yeah.
So it was like just like anything that you buy in the market, right? You just hassle over it, right? And obviously we now have a problem. Or we should say Publius has a problem because he has two people who now hate him for the rest of his life so far, right? The father and the son.
Yeah.
That's not counting from what we learned in chapter 1 about all the people from his past life that hated him, that he locked up and tortured. He's got a long list going.
So yes, we haven't necessarily heard everything, but things are not necessarily pointing in a great direction in many ways for Publius right now, right?
Yep.
Anything else at chapter 2 that we want to point out?
Just this interesting reaction from Livia that surprised me. And it's on page 42. Mm-hmm. And it says, the second she first saw Pontius Pilate, she sensed she had encountered a cruel and powerful enemy.
Yes, I know what's the
unknown, intuitive forces spoke to her soul, as if voices from the invisible plane had begun preparing her spirit for the bitter trials that lay ahead. Indeed, in their spiritual aspect, women, symbols of sanctuary of both home and family, can often interpret the impenetrable mysteries of characters and souls against the murky scenes of successive and pain-filled reincarnations. There's so much there.
There's a lot there, right? Yeah. So there's intuition first, right? Yeah. And then there is an allusion to spiritual forces who are almost whispering to her, right? So an aspect of mediumship.
Second piece. And then the third piece, this piece that talks about, indeed, their spiritual aspect, women, symbols of sanctuary of both home and family, can often interpret the impenetrable mysteries, like the role of women and their sensitivity, which I thought was cool.
Yes, right.
Let me bring my neo-feminist view to the story.
No, which is great, and it's also true, because I think that we also have women who are a lot more in tune to relationships and the subtleties of things, whereas clearly we can see the male bravado exemplified in the power of the senator of Rome.
Yeah, the pride and
you can pick a kid off the street and say, to the galleys with you, right? But she has intuition and she has some whispering over there. So she sort of knows. And if we go back to her spirits book, we know that intuition can be a little bit of a spiritual insight.
Yeah.
But also it can be recalling of your
previous,
your spiritual programming. So she feels it, like she's more in tune, right? We're all #Team Livia, right?
I told you. #Team Livia.
And
I'm gonna wear a shirt next time.
Yeah, Team Livia. And she feels that, she knows that something is coming in. She knows that Pilate is a conduit.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because she hasn't even talked to him, right? It's just like an energetic thing. She knows there's a problem. And we're gonna find out in chapter 3 what that begins to manifest like.
Yeah. And she was she received advice from Calpurnia in the first chapter about that too. So she was preparing her that she might encounter a different group of people that is not the same that she used to be, because she and Calpurnia already like kind of, and I think in chapter 3 she said something like that, when they go to the party and everything, that they try to not get involved to the way that the Roman aristocracy, or how we call it, used to live, and this like kind of, I think, made her instincts, and she more aware of the surroundings and the people and everything. So
yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah.
Because
and Publius was the other way around, I think. When you read it, he was like kind of to get away from everything, so he's not like really paying attention to everything. So he's like just letting go.
Yeah, because that's right. Like, it's a great point. Like, if we look at the relationships again, we know that Publius and Livia have a good relationship. They also have a good relationship with their really close friends, right? The other senator, Flaminius and Calpurnia. So there's like a couple match there, and they know that they're going to go, and people tell them, right, you're going to go to Jerusalem, and yes, your uncle Salvius, right? Publius' uncle was the praetor, which was the governor, and had the governorship stripped. He didn't. He's not the role model that we all aspire to be.
Yeah.
And everybody's telling them, he's not a great guy, and his wife is not, right? So she gets the warning from her friend Calpurnia that she should not trust people, because it's going to be a very big shift, right? But yet they leave the comfort of their home and their friendship to go because of their kid, which they must, right? I think as parents, you feel like
for our kids.
that we do.
Yeah.
All right, and then we shift gears to chapter 3, which is called In Pilate's Home Officially. However,
or it's called A Party, a Desire, and a Scheming Plot.
Yeah.
It's like, it's my hobby. And in another life, I was a book editor. Like, this is what you should call it.
Yeah.
But it is a good, a good chapter. I would also add something to some in the plot thickens, right?
Yeah.
That is really great.
And that was fast, right? Because when you started reading the chapter and the way that Pilate is trying, you don't think that he's going to tell her or go like the way he approached her so fast. Well, I thought it was really fast. We thought that this going like slow motion for a while, and like he tries to get her some different way, but it's just like in her face. First time he just like, this is what I'm feeling, and so on and so on, and I don't know.
No, it's a great point. So let's do a recap on chapter 3 really quickly, right? So that's all it is, chapter 3, right? We start to see that Pilate has feelings, or starts to develop feelings for Livia, and they have and let's recap. So Publius and Livia are living with their with his uncle, Salvius and Fulvia. And we also noticed that Fulvia is not the kindest of people. She wants Flavia, the kid, to be like at a distance. She's afraid that they are going to catch what she has. So there's a little bit of like a pain in Livia's heart there. But they are still in high society, so they still do the parties and everything else. Pilate starts getting a little fresh with Livia and tries to find an excuse to see her. So throws this lavish party, right?
Truly lavish.
I think before that, he at some I'm not sure if it's in chapter 3 or 2. It said that he went to the house almost every day as an excuse to talk to.
Chapter,
right. And then he invite them to this party, right?
And in the party, he finds a way of actually inviting them to stay at his palace.
Yes.
No, you shouldn't stay with your uncle. It's great, but I mean, you're a senator of Rome. Why don't you come here? We have plenty of space. Right? So he's really trying to get her closer to him. Which is obviously very forward. not as much as surprising if you think about it. I think it's even more shocking for us today. But
Yeah.
historically speaking, marriages were not necessarily out of love back in the
Yes.
day, right?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, let's call it intermingling, right?
Yeah.
Especially for the higher society where they just kind of did what they wanted to, right?
Yep.
But
So in the chapter, we see their love unfold. We hear of one of the Galvesons. No, it's not his name. What is he?
the lictor,
The lictor talk about this guy named Jesus.
this prophet, right?
And then we
Yeah.
hear some scheming. Where would you guys like to go first?
Well, should we go back to the chronology of things? Because now, yeah,
So those are the three things.
that's the three
happen
things
in
that
the chapter,
happen.
right?
Yes.
Great. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
The
Yes.
romance, the early stories about Jesus, and then this scheming that.
Oh yeah, he ends up on a
Yeah.
Ends juicy.
Yes.
He does end
Pretty
juicy,
good.
right? So I think that the interesting piece that they're connected, right? So we learned that Flavia, the kid, right, Polis, because it's getting a little better with the weather,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And so they're excited about that,
Yeah.
right? And then they said, well, if there is even better weather around here,
Yeah.
then we can go. And then
Yeah.
pilots, seeing that they just decline, Livia found a way of declining staying in their home. She's saying, why don't you come to my villa, right, in Nazareth, right?
Yeah.
Because the weather, because I've been here for 6 years, she tells us.
I know where the
I know the
And,
weather.
and in this feeling, she's feeling better. I thought of something, and I want to tell you guys, and you guys tell me what you guys think.
Yeah.
We know that we study Spiritism, and like even Xavier, he has like an aura, right? They say that they measure, it's really big. Everyone that get close to him feels something, feels better. And I imagine Jesus aura expanding to the whole region, right?
Yes.
So this kid that needs help get to a place close to Jesus, and immediately she's feeling better, right? So I think this is, for me, it's something that when I read again, and that thought come to my mind, so of course she's gonna feeling better. She maybe 2 towns away from Jesus, and like she's not like someone that is like, of course we know that everything we pass is something that we need to pass because we have all this what's the word I'm looking for here? We have to it's easy sometimes for me to do in Portuguese, so I'm trying to get the words in English to say. So, well, we need to, everything that we do, so action and reaction, we know that we have to go through everything that we need to do to get this done, right? To get better. But this kid is like innocent. That's put in quotes here, because we know that we're talking about the spirit here. So that was a part for me. It's so small, but it's like, why she's getting better? Maybe
With the weather, is it also, or the same thing?
Yeah, or both.
Getting closer to Jesus, right? So yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting perspective that I think we're going to dive a little bit more into that as the story develops. So
yes.
Trend for us to kind of keep going. But they do plan on going, right? To Galilee where the weather is better.
Yes.
Pilate has a villa in Nazareth.
Yeah.
That's when everything starts to come together, right? Because the same guy that caught the boy that was supposedly, allegedly stoning caravan with Livia, who is the right-hand man to Pilate, Sulpicius Tarquinius, all of a sudden, when he hears Nazareth, he just is compelled to share the story. Because now he's with the party, like after dinner, because they moved after the lavish dinner, and he's compelled to talk about this prophet.
This is the second time, by the way, that a man puts himself out there to share something really vulnerable, which I think is unique, because we see our protagonist do that in chapter 1, and now we see this guy. So both of them feel compelled to share these spiritual
part. And this is even more compelling, right? Because Sulpicius is the guy that is at the bottom of that social group over there, right? Because you have the governor of Judea, right? You have the senator of Rome, and you got a praetor right over there. So these guys are relatively well, but the lictor stands a little bit less, right? And so he's taking an even bigger gamble talking about it, even though he is the governor's right-hand man, sort of, right? At least a trusted person, to the extent that the governor even makes fun, like, oh, great, like a lictor is supposed to cheer us up, and here it comes with the stories, right?
Yeah. But even when he's saying this story, he's like, looks like he's not aware. It's like he's telling what happens, and he's starting saying, I don't know why. I sit down and starting listen to the person. Yeah. And he said that a lot of times, say, I don't know why, but I had to sit down and listen to that guy that was speaking. And so he describes so beautifully. It's so
it's on page 57. Right on the top 57, he says his words were like, well, let me back up at least. Page 56, he says, speaking of Nazareth, have you heard about this prophet?
And everybody's like, what prophet?
Yeah.
He says a little bit about that, but then he talks about...
But wait, can we stop right there where you are? Because it's beautiful. He says, now has a prophet that has been performing miracles, right?
Yep.
And then Pilate sarcastically kicks in and says, what are you talking about, Suspicious? Don't you know by now that the Jews hatch new prophets every day?
Every day,
right? There's a new prophet every day. Everybody's vying for attention, right? Keep going. Sorry, I interrupted you.
He said, as if touched by a mysterious invisible power, I too sat down to listen. And then it kind of skips forward a little bit, and he said his words were like a song of hope for all the downtrodden of the world, and they hung between heaven and earth, renewing the thoughts of all who were listening. Such a beautiful way to describe that, right? Like poetic, and just, this invisible power moved me, and then once I was there and listening, it was like a song that spoke to my soul.
And another part that it really touched me was when he said that he was barefoot and poor, but he was noticeably immaculate. So even it was strange for him to see someone that it was poor in a way that was like visually pleasing, right?
Then go again to your comment about the aura of Jesus, right?
Yeah.
There was some gravitas to the man, to the point that when he spoke, people listened. Yeah. So much so that even a lictor, right, who it's definitely not going to mix with the Jews or anything else, was compelled to sit down and listen. Yeah. And he wasn't the only one, right?
No.
Because he also brings the story up of the centurius Coponius, Capernaum, an old and distinguished centurion, he says. So even this other Roman centurion, right? A centurion is a soldier who has 100, who commands 100 men, right? So he's a pretty
not a simple soldier,
right? And so he's a citizen of Rome. He's got 100 men. He's distinguished. He's old, which means he's good, because if you live too old as a centurion, you know what you do.
Must be good.
And the centurion takes his kid to see Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the boy, what happens to the boy?
Experiences a jolt of new life. Bottom of page 58.
Right? And so this is interesting, right? Because we have like an inspiration for Sulpicius Tarquinius to share the story about a Roman citizen having his kid healed by this new prophet, which, I mean, it's almost like a shoe-in to what the situation that we have here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And don't ruin it for me. I know you guys have both read the book, but like my mind immediately went to will Publius Lentulus take Flavia? That's my question. Don't answer it. I don't want to know yet.
That's a great link question to watch. One of the things.
Yeah. But you see that at the end, Flavia got like curious about it because involved that a kid being cured, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So they are there because of their kid. So,
right. And to go back to your point of Sulpicius being inspired, right? At the end, there is a question, right? Don't you know that the, like Pilate's basically say, don't you know that by you just sitting there, Tarquinius, you can just lend credence to this prophet because you are a figure of Rome, right?
yeah.
And he's like, sir, he's like, as one of the last paragraphs, sir replied that disheartened Sulpicius, I myself cannot explain the reason for my observations that afternoon. At first, I consider his teaching subversive and dangerous for making slaves equal to their masters. Imagine this is a big deal, right? Because it's all about hierarchy. But then I notice his miserable poverty considered by his disciples and followers as a joyful and happy condition, something that does not constitute the least concern to the provisional authorities. So he started thinking as a Roman, right? But then again, he was making the poor people happy, and he wasn't rousing them up. So, right? And this is what I think is interesting. Besides, his sermons do not interfere with the work of the peasantry and laborers, because he usually gives the sermons, right, during rest periods. It's also interesting that his favorite companions are among the humblest and least educated fishermen of the lake. So basically, yes, but then again, he's not like stopping work. He's not creating a social revolution, which other prophets wanted to do. Yeah. So it's harmless.
And this moment brings something up that, like, he's not like naive. So he told this story, but he thought about everything. So even as he's sharing this story, like that he was in a position that he should not be, he already thought about if that was good for Roman Empire, if that was a problem, how to deal with this. So when the Pilate like kind of put him in a bad spot, he was like, no, but he's not a harm for the empire and everything, and we are okay. So
right, yep. So that was an introduction to this prophet.
Yeah, and it gets shut down, and they decide to go outside. But before we go outside to that story, we skipped over Pilate's wife. And while in a minute we're going to talk about Pilate being a little sleazy, I wanted to point out that Claudia, his wife, and the way she's described, because on page 54, kind of in the middle of the page, it talks about, the other woman, again,
Fulvia
is being sort of rude and persnickety to
basically wants to out the kids, like, don't you see that the Flavia, Lentulus kid, right?
Yeah.
Leprosy.
And then Claudia cuts her off, basically, right?
And Claudia, it says like, Claudia, a noble and dignified soul, the antithesis of her sister, whom fate had given her, grasped the direction of Fulvia's thoughts and hurriedly objected. I see no grounds for such fears. I think little Flavia is much better and stronger, so much so that I believe Jerusalem's climate will bring forth her complete recovery. Like she just, and I had forgotten they were related.
She goes beyond that, yeah.
She walks over to the little girl as if to undo the hurtful impact of Fulvia's insensitive remark. She took her in her arms, kissing her little face covered with purplish hues of badly veiled sores.
So that's the huge part, right?
Yeah.
She literally gets close to the kid who supposedly has leprosy and kisses the kid, which we know that's like physical contact is how that was passed, and that's why people shun the lepers into a valley, because they didn't want to get close to them, right? And she's just an incredible.
Yeah.
Again, the women here putting the men, their husbands, to shame. Right?
A little bit.
Team Claudia as well so far. Right?
Hashtag Team Claudia.
Claudia. Right? Yes. We're going to put a hashtag Team Claudia over here.
So anyways, I just wanted to point her out because her husband is
less than ideal.
Right? Which we learn about on page 60.
Yes. So what happens? So what happens when they go outside? They break out into groups, right? As you normally do in parties, right? You just do the polite thing.
Yeah.
The mingling thing.
More in pairs, right?
Yes.
Because because we have Pilate and Flavia. We have Publius and Claudia.
And I think that Salvius and Procula, the uncle and the wife, I think that they also are like at a distance a little bit. Things out, right?
Are they the ones hiding in the bushes?
They are the ones that
Yeah.
that later see it, and we find out why. But during this group conversation piece, or just like bouquet, you know, when they break apart into the little bouquets, that's when what you alluded before and what Alex was talking about. Wow. Pilate just comes strong, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, being the governor of Judea, it doesn't surprise us because he's used to getting what he wants.
Yes.
There's so much power involved with these guys that they are just like, he just goes for it. He's not coy about it at all, right? He says, saying like, I don't know where I've met you from before, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, that's the interesting part, that because he cannot explain why he's so attracted and fixated in her since he saw her for the first time. So yeah,
he says, it torments me that you don't understand my heart filled with this overpowering veneration.
Yeah.
And I love her reply because she says, I too
yes,
have inspired such passion in you.
Right, which is great, right? And she takes that she's very smart, right?
Yeah.
Because she's like, oh, what are you doing, right? She doesn't challenge the authority. She says, I am sorry that I might have caused this on you because you're the authority, right?
Yeah.
She gives him an out to save face, right?
Yep. Your words surprise me bitterly, not only because they come from a patrician vested with the lofty responsibilities of procurator of the state, but also because my husband has devoted his trusting and noble friendship to you. So she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, whatever I have done. And I'm so surprised because you're such an amazing person. You're in charge of all these things.
You're responsible
My
for so many
husband
things.
sees you as a great friend. I mean, like, what a great, like, sort of two steps back.
Yeah. But he still goes a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they go a couple of times.
Oh yeah, he keeps going and going, and but it is a matter of the heart and blah.
Yeah,
blah, blah.
there's a part that he says that, but you make me forget all those obligations. So I wonder where I could have seen you before to have become so enamored with you. And then she goes like, in the name of the gods, that's enough. So he got to the point that she see that he's not going to stop, and in a way, and
and she gets like physically not well.
Yeah. Right, because there's whole appearances to kind of figure it out too, right? And then the group, I think Claudia and Publius kind of come back at that key moment, right?
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's recovering her strength. She bowed her head slightly in thanks as Publius and Claudia approached them. The conversation reverted to a general tone to everybody's satisfaction, right? So they gather up again, but then was it you, Nicole, that had the bushes, right? So
yeah, it says Fulvia and Sulpicius.
Yeah.
How do you say it, Alex?
Sulpicius, right?
Sulpicius.
Which is the right-hand man, right?
Had witnessed every detail through openings in the dark foliage. So yeah, they're hiding in the bushes. Pretty much. Peep and Tom.
Yeah, right. Which is interesting, right? Because this is not Fulvia and Salvius. It's not Fulvia's and her husband. It's Fulvia's and the governor's right-hand man.
Yeah.
Right? The guy that caught the boy that threw the stone, the guy that told us about Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is surprising.
Yes.
Because her husband is the one that stay alone looking at art. That's they say when they broken in pairs. He's the one that stayed in the palace or whatever to look at art.
But I was really hoping that the guy who had talked about Jesus was a good guy. Like he was one of the good guys rather than somebody trying to do a power grab.
Yeah. But he's interested in something. So this is an interesting triangle, square, pentagon thing, right? Because Publius is married to Livia, right? Pontius is married to Claudia. Pontius likes Livia, right? And Sulpicius likes Fulvia, who's married to Salvius, right? So there's this like crossing over of relationships.
Yeah, and the thing is that Fulvius is sister to
Claudia,
that is married to Pilate, right?
So the insinuation here is that she has been getting on with Pilate.
Yeah,
She's
behind her sister back.
On her sister, right?
Yeah.
So it's...
But again, I wanted the right-hand guy. You know, he told the story about Jesus. He was drawn in. He was sitting there. He said these beautiful words. And then the way he is described at the end of the chapter, page 63, you know, first paragraph on that page, it said, and the two personifications, talking about Sulpicius and Fulvia, the two personifications of spite and lechery rejoined the fraternal group, wearing masks of feigned joy after having sealed their sinister pact. That is not how I describe good people.
No,
so I am guessing he is
no, not at all.
Far from it.
And basically, she says, you're going to help me bring them down.
And then get power from it.
And you get me.
Yeah. She already has a plan. She says that I have a plan. Yeah. So you need to help me out here.
All right.
And in the meantime, Livia doesn't tell Publius about none of that happened because she knows, being a thoughtful wife, that would create a lot of friction between the senator of Rome and the governor of Judea. So it's all hush hush. And the woman, again, bearing the weight there, right?
Yeah. Yes. Second time
that's true.
Telling him things in order to not make him unhappy.
Or not create a scandal, even bigger, right? It's not just to him unhappy, but she also understands his position. Right? And the solution would be like, go home but the kid, right? How about flag?
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think on her head at the time, they're going to move, right? So on her head, she's going to get away from him, and they just arrived there. So maybe, why I'm going to say something if maybe I'm going to be far away from this person, and I don't need to worry about him anymore.
Yeah. And one thing we forgot to mention, because there's so much in it, is that Sulpicius, who is now in cahoots with Fulvia, is the one who's supposed to buy a villa near the villa to the pilots and kind of do a HDTV thing and you know redesign it. So he's gonna be in the middle. Like he's trusted. He's gonna be in the middle of the.
And she asks him in the end to like make it slower for them to stay more in the capital until they move, because then I don't know. I don't remember what she's going to do next. Yeah. So.
And this is exactly what it says. First of all, you will stall Publius' moves to Nazareth in order to make them move even farther away. I'm sorry, in order to make that will complicate the relationship between the governor and Livia once she leaves Jerusalem, right? So she wants to let the tension build and then also put them even farther apart to make the governor more desperate, right?
I can't wait to see what happens. So we've got about 5 minutes left. Final thoughts, questions for next time, or to wrap it up.
So what are the things that we need to watch for next time? Because next time is going to be chapters 4 and 5, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a shifting dynamics in terms of relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've learned a little bit about the context of Jerusalem in general and the power and the people, right?
Yeah.
We have eventually that difficult thing with Saul and Andre. And we obviously have this tension between Romans, who are the occupiers, and the Jews. And of course, we have the introduction to this prophet.
Yes.
Right? So there's lots of things on the horizon.
Lots happening.
Yeah. All right. So what else do we want to keep an eye out, or do we want to single out before we call this adjourned? Such a formal word.
I have an important question. Just because last time it was just Dan and I. Alex, what worked for you? What are you looking forward to next time? What can we do better?
Well, I think that's worked for me, so I'm good. Well, I'm in Minnesota, so here it's already 10:53, almost 11. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but other than that, there's no other way. So For me, it's fine. It's working fine. I hope next time I'll be here too. So
I certainly hope so.
hope
You
so.
added so much. I love that you made me think about the boy and whether he really threw the stone. You made me question other things about the books. I mean, I really loved your contributions.
Indeed, indeed. It was great having you.
yeah. So thank
It was
you,
a ton of fun.
guys, for this opportunity too. So,
All right, and
I think everything's fine for me. It's working.
Perfect.
Wonderful. So keep those ideas, kind of questions coming. And we invite whoever might watch this as well to join us.
Yeah, they can post questions on the online forum. You can post questions on the online forum. And I'm going to make sure I'm prepared and reading for next time.
Okay.
I'm not giving up.
And I think I am going to make the switch to paper, guys. I think you guys have gotten me. All right. So
have a great night.
You too, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone watching out there. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.